Hi, my name's Kevin Darty. I'm the Education Director for the Ag in the Classroom program here in Illinois, and it's time for another episode of Beyond the Barn Door, where we take a look at things that you might not think about that involve agriculture. Here we are, second week of September, and students all over the state are getting ready to go and watch high school football games. What might football have to do with agriculture? Well, first off, it's called a pigskin. Although technically not a pigskin, it's actually made from the hides of beef cattle. Pigskins go back to Laura Ingalls Wilder. Actually, in the book Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House in the Big Woods, she talks about how when they slaughtered a hog, they used the bladder to blow up as a balloon and they kicked it around like an early form of a soccer ball. They were using every part of the animal. Much as the tradition still today, we try and use all parts of the animals, and in fact, the inside of a current football is called a bladder, although it's no longer made from pork products. It's now made from plastic. That's why we call it a pigskin, although it really comes from the hides of leather. And speaking of those hides from leather, most of the football used in the NFL are actually produced from leather tanned in Chicago, Illinois, at the Horine Leather Works. That's kind of an interesting thing. What other products are used in football? Well, you have cotton in the uniforms. You also have beef and pork byproducts in the plastics that we use in the shoulder pads and the other pads for football players that wear. And of course, you can't play football without a field. Typically, high school games and a number of college games are played on turf, which is grass, turf grass. There are a number of different types of grasses that are used because they have to be able to withstand the wear and tear that football players, cheerleaders, and marching bands all place on them. However, some new AstroTurfs are being made from soybeans. Soybeans turned into oil, used to make the plastics used in the AstroTurfs used on playing fields. Isn't that kind of cool? Some football fields in Illinois could be adjacent to soybean fields. Of course, after you go to a football game, you have to have a snack. And all sorts of snacks come from agriculture, including the corn syrup in your soda pops, popcorn, which is Illinois' state snack, and we grow a lot of popcorn specifically in the Mason County area. And of course, you can't forget both corn chips used in nachos, and I'd like to say that nacho cheese contained dairy products, but most of the nacho cheese that you use actually contains soybean oil, soy products. Of course, you got to go and start rooting on some of your favorite teams. Some of my favorite teams involving agriculture include the Farmington Farmers. Farmington is located in west central Illinois in the Fulton, Peoria, and Knox County area. They're the farmers, the Farmington Farmers. In east central Illinois, you'll find Mattoon. And Mattoon, they're the Green Wave. The Mattoon High School mascot is the Green Wave. They're named after the fields of corn that are surrounding Mattoon, and they all kind of wave in the wind. You go a little further east in Illinois, you come to Hoopeston, and Hoopeston's the site of the Corn Jerkers, the Hoopeston Corn Jerkers. Hoopeston at one point in time was the sweet corn capital of the world, and the students and the players, they would work in the sweet corn fields, and they would have to jerk the ears of corn off of the sweet corn plant, and they became known as the Corn Jerkers. And finally, you head up to DeKalb and you'll find the Barbs, B-A-R-B-S. Barbs of DeKalb, the DeKalb High School Barbs. They're named after barbed wire. The fields that you see that are sometimes protected with wire with little barbs on it, little short pony points that will keep the horses, the cattle, the animals inside the fence. That was invented by Joseph Glidden in DeKalb County, DeKalb, Illinois. And of course, there are some other famous football things here in Illinois. In fact, there's a corn processing plant in Decatur, Illinois, called Staley's, the Staley Company. It still exists today. Back in 1919, those workers needed something to do. The owner of the Staley Manufacturing Company, he came up with and he had his football team made up of players from the factories in 1919. In 1920, he hired a football coach named George Halas. In 1921, they realized football was so popular they couldn't just live in Decatur. Those Staley Bears ended up moving to Chicago in 1921, and they become the Chicago Bears that we know about. In east central Illinois, you'll find the town of Westville. They claim to have held the first nighttime football game back in September of 1928. And finally, one last thing that you can deal with football and agriculture. The Midwest Dairy Association, Midwest Dairy, and the National Dairy Council have teamed up with the NFL to offer a program called Fuel Up to Play 60, which offers nutrition and exercise information and incentives for schools to be a part of. If you haven't checked out Fuel Up to Play 60, sponsored in Illinois by the Midwest Dairy Association, I encourage you to do so. See, once again, everything has a link back to agriculture, and you can't play football this Friday night without agriculture. Thanks a bunch.